Welcome everybody to CyberKriya, the show where the enterprise cybersecurity wisdom happens. We invite the experts, leader from our industry who have inspired me over the line. And I was attending a training for SAP Cloud Identity Services managed by SAP. And I would be honest, that probably was one of the best training I had. I think it was a 3-day full training. The instructor went all deep into it and even answered questions I always have. So I thought, why not to invite him to my podcast? And he graciously agreed to come in. I would say he's an expert. I think he knows the product even while sleeping, probably. He is a ASAC speaker. He has been doing this for, I would say, almost 2 decades, if I'm not wrong. So without further ado, let me welcome my guest of today's episode, Harjeet Judge. Harjeet, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Gaurav.
So before we deep dive, Harjeet, maybe you want to introduce yourself to our audience who may not know you.
Sure. Hey, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Harjeet Judge. I'm a solution expert within adoption and consumption team at SAP. I'm based out of the Vancouver, Canada office. And as Gaurav, you mentioned, I've been around SAP for 20 plus years, working in various different teams. I started my journey with SAP with a small company out of Vancouver called Crystal Decisions. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that company, but they used to make the Crystal Reports software. So I started with that company back in, I think, 2006, if I remember correctly, around there, maybe a bit earlier. So I started off in the support team. Within 3 months of me starting with that company, it got acquired by Business Objects, which was a company out of Europe, from France. And then SAP acquired Business Objects. So that's how my journey into SAP world came in. I primarily spent most of my time or most of my years working in the analytics space at SAP. So I did a lot of work around Crystal Reports with the Business Objects analytics portfolio, and then transitioning into SAP Analytics Cloud in various different roles. But over the past 5 years or so, I've been primarily focused on BTP security topics. So I do a lot of work with customers now within my current team around cloud identity services, which is a pretty critical component of the BTP security framework, if you will. So I provide a lot of advisory sessions to customers, a lot of training sessions to customers on how they should leverage these services within their SAP portfolio. So that's my work life. On the personal side, like I said, I'm based out of Vancouver. I've been in Canada for 35 years now. I was born in India. I was born in near Amritsar, a small town near Amritsar, and we moved here in 1990. Went to school here, went to university here. Pretty much grew up in Canada. So I've been, been around for 35 years here. I've got a whole family, a lot of extended family in the region as well. That's about it.
Thank you, Harjeet. And I'm glad you brought the BTP part. And I didn't know about your SAP Analytic Cloud history too. So that I feel like that probably help us as well. Also, I think you didn't mention a few things about, like, when I was doing the research about you, like an avid speaker on ASAC. I think you have been a regular ASAC speaker, a community leader. You share things on SAP community as well. And I would be honest, as I was saying, like, I really meant when I said, like, maybe one of the best training I have ever had, if not in recent days. So you are just amazing trainer and educator as well. So I will give kudos to on that too. I know you are very humble, Harjeet.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've done a lot of like the ASAC sessions and tech ed conferences in the past. Not so much recently, ever since COVID. I think that the conference participations kind of dwindled a little bit over the COVID years, and it never really picked back up, at least personally not for me. A lot of the tech ed sessions and some of these other conferences are now mostly virtual. So all of my training sessions that I now run have been typically virtual sessions, not through ASAC or not through tech ed, but directly with our customers that I engage with. But in the past, when I was part of Business Objects teams or working within SAP Analytics Cloud product management team, we did lots and lots of training sessions at various conferences around those products.
So I want to know the part where somebody who was a business object Crystal report. Actually, there was so my first guest was Jay. And if you know about him, Jay, I call him the magician with the hat on. I think he had some business object. I think he worked for the business objects too. If I don't know if you know him. Do you know him?
I do know him, yeah.
Okay,
Jay
Jay
Thoden,
Thoden,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
we go way back, yeah. So I remember interacting with him 20 years ago. So I actually do
Okay.
reach out to him from time to time for some of the areas that he's expert in.
Here you go. So we have another common connection apart from me being a trainee and you being a trainer. So I found another connection. So yeah, so he was my first guest for this podcast. So okay, I will take it. So maybe more topic to talk, and maybe I'd love to know maybe more about that side, and if you can, Harjeet. So maybe I think going back to the question I was trying to allude to, like how does somebody who has a business object, more, I would say, analytic cloud, more analytical person, become like somebody on like BTP security or the cloud identity services security? Because you do so, you are amazing. So I just want to know that part, just for me, if not for the audience.
Yeah, so even when I was working in the analytics space, right, whether it was business objects and whether it was SAP Analytics Cloud, I was always more not from the front end part of it, not non designing visualizations. It was more around the technical integration around how SAC, for example, would integrate with S4HANA or BW or other SAP solutions that are out there. So my work always around the connectivity piece, around the architecture setup. And as part of that initiative, I was doing a lot of work around, SAML setup and single sign-on setup and connectivity setup. I knew a lot of the concepts already, so it was a fairly natural transition for me to move into the BTP security space because I was pretty familiar with the technical pieces of SAML, OIDC, that type of stuff that comes under the IAM space.
Okay. So you were like kind of ready just for SAP to bring a offering like a BTP, and you already had all the expertise,
Right.
right?
SAP's had BTP for several years, right? I only really got into the BTP world, like I said, about 5 years ago, maybe even a little bit less than that. So prior to the role that I'm in, I was in SAP education. I was actually building training classes for SAP Analytics Cloud. I used to be an instructor. I would deliver training classes for SAP Analytics Cloud as well. Then I wanted to branch out into other areas of the business. And because of my background, like I mentioned in, connectivity around single sign-on, those types of topics within the SAC world, it just made sense for me to move into the BTP space and focus on BTP security topics specifically.
I know we will deep dive on BTP security and all the identity and access management and the identity services piece too. But even before we jump to non-personal thing, I also want to know more about that whole education part, right? How does that become something you love doing it? Because I feel like you really do amazing job as a educator or trainer. So is there like a back story, maybe? So maybe anything you want to share? I don't know if somebody asked about you, but I feel like you really are good on that. And so how does that come? Is it like natural? Like as a kid, you were like. Just tell me more
Definitely
about
not.
it. I want to hear, because that's something I try to learn. I feel like this is the one thing which gets you purpose, and that I think you'll not get anywhere else. So tell me more about that, Harjeet, if you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it definitely does not come naturally to me. So in fact, I was very, very shy. So if you go back to my university days, I would purposely avoid classes where I actually had to do presentations in the class. So yeah, and same thing with high school, same thing with university, right? But as I started my journey within SAP, Crystal Decision Business Objects, right, I started to get involved in initiatives where you had to do presentations or do training sessions for customers or even for internal employees. So I started off doing internal training sessions, and then I started doing more customer training sessions. So all of the skill set that I have, I built through work. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I'm still not comfortable speaking in front of people. It doesn't come naturally to me. Some people are very, very natural. For me, if you ask me to present a technical topic, I'm very, very good at presenting technical topics. But if you ask me to do more, I don't know, just like say be a MC at a wedding reception or something like that, that does not come naturally to me. So I still struggle a little bit in that aspect, but because I've done this for several years now, I think you just build that comfort level, build that expertise. And the thing is, if you know what you're talking about, getting in front of people and talking about that subject is not difficult. When it becomes really hard is when you don't know the topic and you kind of have to wing it. And I never like to wing any presentations or any topics. I need to know the stuff inside out before I would go stand in front of someone to present that topic. But like I said, I definitely not natural. I hated doing presentations at university.
I think I was seeing myself when you're saying that. I feel like maybe we may have done our university at the same time. So I have to maybe get more details. But yeah, okay, I was kind of seeing myself, and yeah, I think you're right. Like if it's a topic which you're passionate about it, and you really, I think, have you have actually worked on it, it makes your job easy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was good. So educator, SAC guy, business object guy, now a BTP security plus educator as well, right? So we'll try to maybe put some link, and I know your sessions gets filled, and even like for me also, I was like asking like when is the next session happening. I will try to get my friends or teammates join as well. So maybe if you want to share, we can put that in our podcast, Harjeet. Do you think like we can segue into the topic of today? I think where you have passion and you do our training, the BTP security, more specifically for the cloud identity services, the whole IAM portfolio, Harjeet?
Yeah, we can segue into that. We can also talk about build workzone topics around and Joule topics because those are other areas of SAP, BTP that I'm heavily involved in as well, and general architectural type of concepts or topics within the BTP world. So I don't really just talk about security because security touches so many products. So I have a pretty good understanding of how SAP portfolio kind of works together in harmony. So I can cover other architectural topics as well if needed, going beyond just like cloud identity services. Yeah.
I would love to, because that's I want to start, I think, the very architecture level too, because a solution technology can change, but how you design, how you architect your solution and your landscape. So maybe let me just start with the SAP we know today. I think the SAP our past was more on-prem, more SAP GUI logon based. You may have SSO with other things, but that word has changed now. We are into cloud first SAP landscape, more towards BTP, which is like a all PaaS and SaaS offering, and SAP has new solutions now. So if I'm a customer, Harji, maybe let me just try to maybe get it from my a customer embarking on S4 transformation journey, where the customer may go on S4 on Rise, which is still maybe not the public cloud. Let's stick to the private cloud, which probably seems like is going to be true for the big and large and middle scale customers. So I go on S4 Rise PC model. I would have BTP as my core. That's where all the innovation, all the AI, all the Joule is happening, right? So if I am a somebody who responsible for, and we always say identity is the new perimeter in the cloud world, right? That's where, because it's all available on internet now. You cannot just say this is within firewall. So where do I, if like, how should I take this whole transformation? I know I will have a partner, SI helping, maybe SAP helping me too. But if I reach out to you and say, Harjeet, help me design and maybe knowing maybe I would have a HR systems, I may not have an SAP IDM is going away. So you want to just maybe start from there, like just maybe I don't know if you can share some picture here somehow. I will try to add it. I know you have the whole diagram. Maybe I don't know if you want to share something, but just maybe start from there, Harjeet.
Yeah, I can, and I think it'd probably be helpful for this discussion for me if I can share something,
Sure.
an architecture diagram around identity, lifecycle management, as well as authentication. Because I think in order for me to answer that question, we need to make sure that folks here understand what is the architecture or what is the recommended architecture for user lifecycle management, as well as authentication from an SAP standpoint. And that's not just for S4 private cloud, but it spans across the SAP portfolio. What are some of the key solutions from SAP that would fit into that space? And in order to facilitate that discussion, it'd be helpful if I can maybe share that architecture diagram that we have available on an external site that customers also have access to. Is it okay for me to share my screen?
Yeah.
I can
Let
try
me
to
know. I
bring
think
that up.
this is first time I'm gonna try. So yeah, please try if you can share it. I think you should be able to
Let
share
me
it, Harjeet.
let me give it a shot. I'll see how it goes.
We'll figure it out. I know so much to learn.
Let me know if you can see this.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
All right, so folks, if you're not familiar with the architecture site here, all of the SAP blueprints, architecture diagrams are available on this particular site. So there's quite a wide variety of architectural blueprints here on this particular site. So my area of expertise primarily is in the identity and access management space. So we have an architecture diagram here for a single sign-on and authentication, and also for user lifecycle management. So to answer your question that you were asking, Gaurav, I think everyone who's actually starting their SAP journey or has already started their SAP journey should understand how cloud identity services fits into the SAP landscape. And so if you're looking at this picture here, we got all these different SAP solutions on the right-hand side. They could be on-premise solutions, they could be your cloud-based solutions, SaaS solutions, you name it, right? It could be custom solutions that are built within your BTP
Are you able to
environment.
maximize it, Harjeet, if you can? I think I'm not sure how it's going to come on the. If you can, a little
Let
bit just
me
for the
see
audience.
if I can. Maybe I can zoom in on my browser. That would help. So I can.
Okay.
Let me make a.
That's fine. I feel like it may still come as a good, but if you can, that maybe scroll through.
Yeah, so I think the kind of what I wanted to show, right? So you got all of these different applications. They could be applications hosted inside BTP. They could be other SAP Cloud as well as non-cloud products like on-premise, S4 systems and whatnot, right? So the idea here is that from an authentication standpoint, all of those systems that you have should be integrated with cloud identity services. And in particular, the identity authentication service, which is our cloud-based SSO provider. It's a cloud-based IDP. So in the case of S4HANA, as you mentioned with PCE or the private cloud version, that S4HANA instance should be integrated with identity authentication for authentication workflows. But we also do recognize that customers do have other third-party corporate identity providers within their landscape, right? So we see Microsoft Entra as a very common identity provider that customers already have, or they might have Okta or Ping or Google IDP or some of the other ones that are out there as well. So what we do offer within identity authentication is a way to delegate the authentication to a third-party IDP as well. But the key point here is that all of the SAP solutions should be integrated with identity authentication, and then identity authentication can proxy the request to your third-party corporate IDP if you do have one in place. If you don't have a third-party corporate IDP, identity authentication by itself is a corporate IDP as well that you can use with your SAP solutions. So that's from a authentication standpoint. We also have a similar architecture diagram for user lifecycle management as well.
So just on this, Harjeet, just for the audience, so this SAP Cloud Identity Services, something you have to subscribe to, or you get it as a bundle application? So maybe something if you want to add it here just for the audience and the customers.
Absolutely. So SAP Cloud Identity Services are free of charge, available to SAP customers. So if you have SAP solutions, you have the ability to get a Cloud Identity Services tenant for production as well as for non-prod use cases. So they're available free of charge, and you get 2 tenants available out of the box from SAP. You can get additional ones if you do need them, but typically you would want to standardize on using a non-prod and a prod instance of Cloud Identity Services across your SAP portfolio.
Okay, so if you have already a SAP system, S4 or cloud, you can just simply get these services, and it's a 2 tenant, one for non-prod and one for prod. Have
That
you
is correct.
seen that's how do you recommend to have 3 landscape, or is it the 2 system landscape is what we are recommending as a best practice?
So it really depends upon the customer. Some customers have 3-tier landscape. And if you do have a 3-tier landscape, then it does make sense to get a third Cloud Identity Services tenant as well. But for most customer use cases, usually 2 tenants are sufficient. But if you had, say, 3 different S4HANA instances, one for prod, one for QA, and another one for dev, for example, then it would make sense to have 3 different instances of Cloud Identity Services as well. And it's something if you do need a third one, it's something you can easily provision through your BTP environment. And it's got a very nominal charge. I think it's like 17 euros a month or something like that to get a third Cloud Identity Services tenant if you need it.
So you're saying you can maybe do okay with the 2 system landscape, But if you want, you can always have additional tenant, and it's pretty cheap.
Correct. Yeah. Well, ideally, we standardize on using a prod and a non-prod tenant across the SAP portfolio because that would set you up for success for a lot of the future innovations from SAP, whether it's the Joule topic, which does require you to have a central cloud identity services set up across your SAP portfolio, or even other applications that have been around for, for several years now. The Task Center application also requires that, and more SAP solutions will require you to have your systems integrated with cloud identity services. And if you're doing this from scratch, you want to make sure that all of your SAP applications are talking to the same cloud identity services tenant and not one for, say, SuccessFactor, not another one for S4 or another one for Ariba. That is not something we would recommend.
Okay, so 2 tenant, one for prod, one for non-prod, and maybe the non-prod probably would become the identity or the services IDP or working as a proxy for the entire non-prod landscape, and the prod would do the prod, or how you see, and like what
That
is the
yeah,
recommended approach there, Harjeet?
yeah, that's what it would be like. So you would have, say, an S4 non-prod system, a SuccessFactor non-prod system. They will all be integrated with non-prod cloud identity services, and the prod systems would be integrated with the prod cloud identity service. And if you have more than 2 instances of, say, maybe you have 2 tenants of SuccessFactors that are non-prod, they can be integrated with same cloud identity services tenant, or if you want, you can get a third cloud identity services tenant to have that 3-tier landscape that I talked about earlier.
Okay, and I know there's a whole BTP account structure, account, and things. I think the time may be not enough for to cover everything, but maybe we'll try to do if that's a separate topic we should discuss. But just on the very high level, so these 2 tenants I should do in like a different sub accounts, or I should have like one sub account and have both the tenants there, like how it works.
So the cloud identity services are systems or services that get provisioned through various different ways. So cloud identity services is bundled with several different SAP cloud solutions. So you could purchase, let's say, SuccessFactors, and you would get a cloud identity services tenant. And you may not even have BTP at all in your landscape, but you would still have cloud identity services available to you. So because of these solutions that bundle cloud identity services as part of the package, if you will. So there's not necessarily really a tie-in on the creation of the cloud service identity services tenant through the BTP sub account. So like I was saying, you could get SuccessFactors and you would have access to cloud identity services. You might not even have a BTP environment at all, but you would still have cloud identity services.
Okay, so you may already have a subscription, a separate global account if you have a SuccessFactor subscription, and then you already have those 2 tenants. And if you know how, if you're not sure about it, there's a link where you can go and log in and check, right? There who are tenants I have, and then who are my tenants admin, right?
That is correct. Yeah, there's the IAM tenants URL that customers have access to, and from there you can see which existing cloud identity services tenants you have, and then who are the admins. So like I was saying before, preferably if you are setting up a new SAP application, you want to leverage the existing tenants that you already have in place. You don't want to set up a new cloud identity services instance for that particular project or for that application.
Okay, I think I had some questions, so that is good. So please go ahead, I think. And you're talking about the identity provisioning, I believe, right? Next.
Yeah, so I was going to show you the other reference architecture here. So this is the one that I was just showing you is around authentication, single sign-on topics. The second one that I wanted to show you was the user lifecycle management as well. And user lifecycle management is also pretty central to cloud identity services, right? So before I was talking about this identity authentication service, which is one of the services that make up cloud identity services. But identity provisioning is another service that is also part of cloud identity services. And this service is used for user lifecycle management. So similar concept to before. So if you have a third-party IDM solution, it could be an SAP solution or it could be third-party. So things like SailPoint or some of these other solutions that are out there. The idea is that those third-party IDM solutions don't need to integrate with the SAP solutions in directly, right? So you have all of these different SAP solutions on the right-hand side. So the third-party IDM solution doesn't need to provision a user into an S4 system. It doesn't need to provision a user into BTP or whatever it might be. The IDM solution will integrate with the services that are part of Cloud Identity Services. And then it would be the Cloud Identity Services job to make sure that those users are then synced up to the various different SAP solutions that I have. So imagine SailPoint here as a third-party IDM. It needs to create a user into, say, S4 system. What the third party or what SailPoint would do is it will actually write the user into the central user store of Cloud Identity Services, which is what this identity directory is. And then from there, we would pick up the user and leverage the identity provisioning service to then replicate that user and potentially their permissions or their group membership into, say, an S4HANA landscape or into the BTP environment. So from a user lifecycle management perspective, the identity services are also going to play a very critical role within your BTP landscape. And what you will also see going forward now is more and more applications are also starting to leverage this authorization management service of BTP, of Cloud Identity Services as well, for handling authorizations to applications. So if I say create a new custom application and I deploy it in the BTP environment and I need to control access to certain functionality within the application, this authorization management service that's part of Cloud Identity Services can be used to handle what a user can do within that application. In the past, if you were building custom applications, you would do it through the Access UAA that was within the BTP environment, and you would expose some role collections at the BTP layer. With the authorization management service, you actually do this through authorization policies within the Cloud Identity Services instance itself. So that's another topic, not necessarily reflected in this particular architecture diagram, but I just wanted to touch on that as well from an authorization standpoint.
So I'm a customer already on S4, probably already have this, but if I'm a new customer, let's just think like this, a new customer trying to build, because that's the way you can do it in the right way, right? So the SAP Cloud Identity Services, we said we will have two tenants, prod and non-prod, and both the tenants should have all this. It's like a module for so that tenant would have identity authentication or IES, and then identity provisioning for we call IPS, and then the identity directory is more like user store, and then authorization management is more like the policy level security. So you get all these four kind of a module within the same tenant, right?
That is correct. So Cloud Identity Services, it's a umbrella term that encompasses the functionalities of the four services that I talked about. There's other subcomponents as well that are not reflected in this picture, but these are some of the key components of Cloud Identity Services. If you have a prod tenant or a non-prod tenant, you get access to all of the functionality that you see listed on this picture here.
Okay. And again, a fun question here. So the three-letter acronym which we always use in SAP Word. So do we use SAP Cloud Identity like SCI or is it SAP CIS? I'm kind of seeing different. So what is your take on this? Is it called SCI?
So yeah, if you are going, I don't know if there's a right acronym for Cloud Identity Services. If you are going to use one, then I would use SCI as the acronym. I wouldn't use CIS. I think that's meant for a different product, if I'm not mistaken. But I've seen customers and internals use SCI to refer to Cloud Identity Services. And then for identity authentication, we typically say IAS for Identity Authentication Service. For identity provisioning, we typically use the acronym IPS as well.
And IS and IPS used to be separate tenant on the Neo, which was a legacy. Now then there was a migration. So I don't think we want to go there, but maybe something you want to mention about that, like if any customer are on the legacy Neo platform or anything.
Yeah, so that was the case a few years ago where we used to provision the identity provisioning service as a separate component. So it wasn't really part of the bundle as you see now. So it was a separate service running in the Neo environment, but we no longer provision identity provisioning service as a separate service Now it's part of Cloud Identity Services and it's part of IaaS, so they all run in the same landscape. But if you do have those existing tenants from a few years back where you have identity provisioning service running in the Neo landscape, there's a very easy migration path that you can go through to move that service into the same landscape as where your identity authentication and other services are. So everything will be running in the same landscape. You'll have a single interface to access all of those services rather than two different URLs to manage them.
Okay, so if you're on that Neo, the legacy IES and IPS setup, there's an easy migration path. It's like a details. If you can share, Harjeet, we can try to add it here as well.
I can share a link to the help docs and blogs, but just to clarify, identity authentication has always been running in the landscape that it's currently running in. The service that we used to run in Neo was the identity provisioning service. So in the past, identity authentication and identity provisioning service was provisioned differently. They weren't part of the same package, if you will. And that's why you have, in some cases, this service, identity provisioning service running in Neo. And now we have a migration path to move that service to the same landscape as identity authentication. But identity authentication was never really in the Neo landscape. It's always been in kind of the landscape that it's running in now. Yeah.
So you're saying the IPS, there's a migration path is for IPS to move over to the same single tenant with IES. But
That's
IES
right.
was always on the BTP, whatever the future, the current landscape. So there's no need. So if you can migrate your IPS to IES on the Neo side too, that's not new. That's the BTP. So you don't need to do that.
Yeah. So there's no migration for IaaS. The migration is only for the identity provisioning service, which used to run in the Neo landscape.
Okay. That's good to know. I was not sure about that part. So thank you, Harjeet. At least for me, that's a new learning. So I am a customer. I got my IES, the Cloud Identity Services tenant, prod, non-prod. I'm using an authentication service for my all SSO and MFA need. I can connect to my corporate identity provider, whether it's this, Azure or whatever identity provider I'm using, or even kind of work as its own custom identity provider as well. For the provisioning part, how do I connect with my SuccessFactors or my HR solution? It's just like a standard integrations, or there's some custom work needed there.
Yeah, so with SuccessFactors specifically, right? So SuccessFactor is SAP's HR solution. So right when you're hiring employees or their position is changing and whatnot, that's reflected in that SuccessFactor system. So when you're onboarding a user, they would be onboarded in the SuccessFactor system, right? And from there, we have a configuration that will automatically replicate that user into the identity directory of Cloud Identity Services. So the SuccessFactor integration with Cloud Identity Services, for the most part now, is automated. There is still some work that you have to do as a customer to make sure you run those user sync job to run the user sync between SuccessFactor and Cloud Identity Services. But for the most part, the configuration is done automatically for you, especially if you're getting new SuccessFactor tenants. They're all pre-integrated with Cloud Identity Services. If you have some legacy SuccessFactor tenants and you haven't done the Cloud Identity Services integration, that's something you need to do before the end of this year. It was that was a requirement that we had from the SuccessFactor side for a number of years, that we are going to be deprecating support for SuccessFactor tenants that are not integrated with Cloud Identity Services from an authentication standpoint, at least. So a lot of the customers have already migrated or integrated SuccessFactors with Cloud Identity Services already.
And the same is true for all the other cloud solutions too, right? Like Ariba and Concur. Is it like the service is now mandatory for everything SAP, right, Harjeet?
For the most part, yes, it's not mandatory for everything, but we're definitely heading in that direction, right? Especially if you're looking to take advantage of the new AI services from SAP, whether it's the Joule service or some other service. Those Joule initiatives are now driving a discussion around the whole IAM architecture within SAP customer base. So if the customer didn't have an IAM project in the past, because of these discussions around Joule and having everything kind of integrated with same cloud identity services, are now spearheading some of these discussions to make sure we consolidate on same cloud identity services tenant across the SAP landscape and make sure these Arebas and other services that SAP has are also using cloud identity services from an authentication standpoint.
So, as a security experts, we kind of take that one, right? If we are becoming like so the driver is the AI adoption, but it's kind of helping us to integrate, like have a one single kind of a strategy around entire IAM, around SAP, right? At least I see that as a positive. Do you agree, Harjeet? Like this is, I like it.
Absolutely, right. It's the same type of discussion that you would want to, like, if a customer has, say, Microsoft Entra, right? Customer's not going to have 5 or 6 different instances of Microsoft Entra ID, one for each SAP or non-SAP application that they have. So cloud identity services is similar in that nature. It's a cloud-based IDP that should be shared across your applications, and you shouldn't have one for each application. So that's how I try to justify to customers how they should architect their solution. But for historical reasons, that is not the case with many of our customers. Our customers have multiple cloud identity services in their landscape, and they have solutions integrated with one cloud identity service, another one integrated with different cloud identity service. So there is those types of discussions that I've been kind of driving a lot within our customer base to make sure that we can get them on a consistent or a centralized cloud identity services system within their environment. So there is an opportunity if you're a consultant out there, there is an opportunity for you as well to get involved in the whole AI adoption initiative from SAP. And big part of that AI adoption initiative is going towards having customers consolidate to a centralized SEI tenant.
So have you seen like any pushback from the, like, I know the IAM sometimes, or not sometimes, IAM sits in like the cyber side, the enterprise IAM side, right? Do they think like this is kind of you're creating a parallel or a duplicate landscape, or what's your take on that? I feel like we're saying this is for SAP, this kind of gonna integrate with our, it's not a replacement, it's kind of complementary, right? So what's your take on that, Harjeet?
Where I have seen customer pushback is around, okay, now I've got my third-party identity management solution like Microsoft or Entra ID or Ping or whatever it might be. Why do I need cloud identity services from an authentication standpoint? Or the second thing would be, oh, I have SailPoint, and why do I need cloud identity services? I can integrate SailPoint directly with SAP solutions as well from a user lifecycle management perspective. But so usually how I tackle those discussions with the customer is really explaining the value proposition of cloud identity services and what it offers you. So, and this gets into more on the technical capabilities of cloud identity services, having it in the middle as a proxy to your corporate identity provider for an authentication standpoint. It offers up a lot of capabilities to you as a customer. So like one example that I typically use is, let's say you have, employees that need access to an application, right? And those employees might be stored inside your Entra ID. So all of those users, when they need to access the application, they will authenticate with your Entra ID. But then you may have external partners or even customers or SAP employees that need access to application for troubleshooting purposes, or you want to give access to your partners as well to the same application. You don't necessarily want to create their user record inside your Microsoft Entra ID or your corporate identity provider. So that's where we can have that user record actually be maintained inside cloud identity services, and then we can do conditional authentication so that some users go to Entra for authentication, and those external users are leveraging the user profile within cloud identity services for authentication to the same application. So that's just one kind of example. Right? There's lots of other scenarios where the capabilities of having identity services in the middle as a proxy offers up a lot of additional benefits to you as a customer. So once the customer see the value proposition, then it makes sense. And then there's also this push factor, right? Because a lot of the SAP applications now, even in order for those applications to work, you need to have cloud identity services integrated. So Joule is one example. Even if you were, for example, trying to do build apps or build process automation or build work zone within your landscape in the BTP environment, that in order to even create an instance of those services, or your BTP subaccount should be using cloud identity services as an IDP.
I know you mentioned AI, Joule, and the work zone. So we'll come to those two topics for our audience. But before I go there, just say more like the people part of the process, people and technology. Who should be managing and owning this whole new cloud identity service? Is it our old basis friends or our SAP security friends, or is it a joint effort, or is it within working with our existing enterprise IM team, or like how you have seen customers managing? Because it seems it's a lot of new word, a lot of new learning, not the traditional SAP security or SAP basis work. And I think they have been using SAML and some other part, but I feel like there's a lot to learn here. So first you have to get it learn and have the learning, maybe join the Harjeet sessions if you're a customer. But what's your take on that, Harjeet? Like how do the ownership and the RACI and things like that to manage on this new services?
Yeah, so from a management of cloud identity services, I would definitely recommend having some sort of a central team manage them, and the folks that have the skill set and some of the terminology and the concepts that come into this cloud identity service topic, whether it's SAML, single sign-on, or user lifecycle management. Typically, it's your IAM team that manages other solutions within your portfolio are usually the best equipped to kind of pick up on these concepts because they're already familiar with this stuff. So this is just another solution that they should manage within their portfolio, if you will. What we try to avoid doing is having a particular LOB manage cloud identity services because it's a central solution. No particular solution from SAP should own the cloud identity services topic, if you will. Like if you, for example, if you have SuccessFactors, a first team that integrates with the cloud identity services, it should not be your SuccessFactor admin's job to manage cloud identity services because in the future, that same tenant or cloud identity services tenant could be used with S4, it could be used with Ariba and so on. So it's a shared tenant and it should be some shared team that works with all of these different stakeholders to make sure that we're doing the right things when it comes to user lifecycle management, single sign-on setup, and so on within cloud identity services. Having said that, what we have done recently is enabled what we call delegated admin capabilities. So you have some kind of central team managing it, but then for maybe specific applications, you can create delegated admins within the system who manage maybe a particular set of users or groups and applications within cloud identity services.
You already know what question I was going to ask. In the current IS or identity services tenant, you're saying we can actually have a delegated admins limited to just the one application. It's not like your admin, you can manage all the applications on the cloud identity services. That's true, right? Harjeet, that's like recent feature which was added.
Yeah, it's something we released, I think, about a year, maybe a bit over a year ago. But originally, when we released it, you could only do it for users and I think groups. Now we added the ability to control what applications you can also manage as a delegated admin. So we're enhancing the delegated admin capabilities and what type of granular controls we can add to that delegated admin user. So that's been enhanced over the past little bit. And even for that delegated admin functionality, we're leveraging this authorization management service that I was talking about earlier for that purpose as well.
And that's the part, again, being in SAP for similar like 20 years here as well. I like that whole thought of trying to embed that least privileges by design, right? I don't think I can, again, I'm not trying to like compare it, but I feel like this is so well thought out controls you wanna, because this is a central system which is gonna touch SuccessFactors, my Aribas, my S4s, my custom applications too, right? So there may be different delegated admin needs to maybe let you, like if you're a SuccessFactor admin, maybe you will get access. So I think I just love this new feature, Harjeet. So kudos to the team and SAP there.
Yeah, kudos to the product team that built this functionality over the past years. They've been adding a lot of capability to the solution to make it easier for the customers to integrate as I was saying, many of the SAP solutions actually pre-integrate with cloud identity services, so you don't actually have to go and do SAML setup or set up, user provisioning jobs and things like that. All of the configuration that you would need would be kind of built in out of the box. So that also makes it easier for your IAM experts that you may have that are managing these third-party IAM solutions. It makes their life easier as well because they don't have to know every single SAP application that they need to integrate with. They just integrate with cloud identity services as sort of the central point, and then everything else from there is handled at the cloud identity services level.
I guess I've been repeating this with all my guests. Feel like all the guests I invite, one episode is not enough, Harjeet. So before I let you go for today, I know I will get you to promise to come back. I feel like this is a topic there's a lot of interest. This is our core. This is I would say at the core of our strategy for securing S4 and the future SAP and BTP. So if you agree or if you are agree to come again, I would love to have you into deep dive. But before I let you go, Harjeet, you promised, right, to come back again, Harjeet? I know you're gonna say
Absolutely,
yes, I
I'll be
believe.
honored. I'll be honored. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe we can touch
Okay.
on some other topics besides cloud identity services, but
Okay.
yeah,
So
there are a
I
lot
will
of
take
other
that
BTP
yes.
security. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Harjeet. So I will take that yes. So the two topics you mentioned them briefly. So there's a work zone, which is like the new UI, new launchpad for the SAP, and then there is a AI, right? Everybody wants to do AI, and SAP is going big on AI too. I think no session, no podcast can end or is complete without those at least AI. But you wanna just start with the work zone, or maybe I don't know. I will let you decide how you wanna take it. But I don't wanna cover those two topics and how this strategy of our identity services fits into those two solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work on some specific topic around AI, very, very specifically around the Joule topic. I do have colleagues in my team that cover sort of the AI core services within the BTP environment. So we can potentially even have one of my colleagues who works on that AI core topic to talk about some of those other services that are also available for you to leverage within your BTP environment.
Okay, I will take it. I will take it. I'm all for learning. Like even this is not. I think I don't know. We're trying to do it for audience, but this is for me as well. So let's go into then AI. So you said for the Joule adoption, AI adoption, you have to have your cloud solutions, whether it's on SuccessFactors, Joule activation, or Ariba Joule activation. You have to integrate those solutions with our cloud services. That's like prerequisite now, right? Or but I was saying this architecture center link is not same as the discovery center. Discovery center is a different place,
That's
right? The
correct.
discovery center for the BTP is a different place.
That is correct. Yeah. So a lot of the architecture diagrams now that you've seen on Discovery Center, they have already been moved into this architecture link that I'm showing on the screen here. So this will be the go forward site to access all of the architectural diagrams for the various different SAP solutions. And we can share the link with you. I'll share it with Gaurav, and he can make it available to the audience here as well. But this is a site to go to get access to the architecture diagrams. Discovery Center, even though that's still there, if you want to go to one central place, this is the place to be to get the architecture diagrams. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead with your Joule and IAM, and you're gonna cover that part.
Yeah. So we were talking about this the same architecture diagram that I was talking about before, right? So for Joule, very, very similar concept, right? So in order for Joule to work, the solutions that you have from SAP, they all need to be integrated with cloud identity services. That's not reflected in this picture here that you see on the screen here. But in addition to that, as part of the Joule service, we have these capabilities that are offered in Joule that are called navigational patterns. And what that really means is when you ask Joule a question, it can then navigate you to an application that can help you perform that particular task. Let's say if I ask Joule, I want to create a vacation request, for example, it may give you an application that will help you create a vacation request. So that type of capability is called navigational capability within Joule. And in order to support that capability, we have the solution obviously integrated with the cloud identity services, but we also need build work zone to be able to offer the navigational features within Joule. So that's why this picture mentions build work zone as a service. And within that build work zone instance, we're specifically leveraging the navigational service of build work zone to support that capability in Joule that offers those navigational patterns that I just mentioned. But as a critical part of setting up Joule within your landscape, you need to make sure that your whatever systems you're setting up Joule for, that those systems are integrated with cloud identity services. So whether that's S4 private cloud, whether that's Ariba, SuccessFactor, Concur, or whatever it might be, all of those solutions require integration with cloud identity services before we can activate Joule within those environments.
So do I need both, like the SAP build work zone as well, or is it the cloud identity services? As long as I have that, at least I can use that Joule. I'm getting confused here. Build work zone is separate application, right? So is it like a or is it and or?
It's an and. So you need so cloud identity services is a prerequisite before you can set up Joule. But as part of the Joule setup, what you will also do is you will set up a build work zone instance within your BTP environment. And only purpose that this build work zone instance serves is to offer those navigational capabilities within the Joule instance. So when you launch the Joule chatbot and you ask it a question, and if that question requires you to navigate to an application somewhere to perform that task, in order to show you those navigational links within the Joule conversation, we need the build work zone instance set up. That's what that
Okay, so
is
kind of
for.
helping Joule to navigate to different data point, different data set, different applications to get back whatever it needs to. So we need work zone, build work zone as well. Again, this is new. I didn't know that part as well. So okay.
Yeah. So this is part of the Joule. This picture is not fully complete. There's better architecture diagrams for what's required for Joule. We can bring that up maybe in the next conversation. This picture needs to be enhanced to also show the cloud identity services components as well, because that's also a prerequisite for Joule setup.
I think we're gonna maybe have a series of sessions. Identity itself seems like a you can actually write a book also on that, Harjeet. So just
Yeah.
respect your time. I would say, so if I'm a SAP security or somebody who was kind of in charge to do all such thing for my S4 transformation, right? First, what I should be doing to first reskill or skill myself so that I have all this expertise at the SAP Learning Hub, or what's your recommendation there? So somebody who's just watching our podcast.
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage you to watch some overview sessions around the topic of cloud identity services and how it kind of fits into the overall SAP framework. I've done a lot of webinars in the past on this topic, so there's recordings that are available out there. If you get an opportunity, I would also encourage you to join the workshops that are run by my team. Those are normally advertised through your customer success manager, right? So if you have a BTP contract with SAP, you likely have a customer success manager also assigned to work with you. So they will inform you of any upcoming workshops around this topic. And the workshop that I run is over 2 days, and we cover various different cloud identity services topics in that workshop. So webinars, there's lots of trainings that are out there available externally, recordings of those, or if you can actually join a live training with my team, that would be even better. And that's something you could get informed through your CSM.
And I can vouch for the training, and that's how I got to know about Harjeet. So definitely, I will. If you can, if you're a customer, reach out to your CSM. And I think this is the training you can't miss. Also, if somebody watching, they want to reach out. I don't want to get a lot of folks reaching out to you, but I know maybe after this podcast, you may. So LinkedIn is the platform. If somebody really want to talk to you or reach out, Harjeet, or
LinkedIn's probably the best way, right? But yeah, if you want to send me an email as well, I can happily respond to emails as well. But preferably if you add me to LinkedIn, and then from there we can just use the chat message within LinkedIn as well. And if we need to have an email conversation or a phone call, we can do that if needed.
Okay, so we'll share your LinkedIn profile in our podcast, and I have already my topics for future series, maybe with Harjeet, the educator and the trainer. I think the best trainer I have met in recent time. Thank you, Harjeet, for coming and agreeing to come on our show, CyberKriya. I know identity is the core. Identity is the new perimeter, as we say in the cloud world. I would love to touch more, I guess, on the personal side, but I think just respect the time for you. I know you are a busy man. I will leave this here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing all the knowledge and all the things you shared. And I hope to see you again.
Thank you so much for having me, Gaurav, and thanks to everyone that's listening.
Thank you. Take care, Harjeet. Bye.